Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and this weekend has been a very interesting one at the box office with films like Lightyear crashing and burning, while Dominion and Top Gun really soared to new heights and continue to do incredibly well. And so there's just a lot of news with the Disney Pixar Lightyear situation that I want to get into briefly here. I'm not really interested in this movie for a myriad of reasons. I don't really watch kids animated movies much anymore. I've missed the last 10 probably. So I wasn't interested initially, but even as a fan of the Toy Story movies growing up, I wasn't interested in this because Tim Allen wasn't in it. And I think personally that that's going to be one of the biggest issues with this film is this is not the character or the actor that people have come to know and love over the last 20, 25 years. So I think overall that's the biggest reason why this film isn't doing great. It doesn't help with all the marketing going around it with the lesbian kiss, Chris Evans being an idiot, stuff like that. I definitely don't think that helps anything, but I don't think it's the driving factor why it's failing per se. And yeah, the lesbian kiss for me, I don't think it's necessarily that big of a deal as long as the movie doesn't harp on it too much. It is a kids movie, so I don't think they should go into too much detail on heterosexual or gay relationships like that. Just keep it very minor at best. And then the marketing should not have included it whatsoever and not made it a big deal. I do have to say, I do like that they kept it in the movie for overseas releases because that is something that I have criticized them for in the past. You know, when they cut a lesbian kiss out of Rise of Skywalker, for example, just them being very hypocritical. Not to say that they had any choice in this with all the drama going on with Florida. They had to keep the lesbian kiss in overseas for publicity reasons for the Twitter mob. So I'm giving them some props, but not really props that they deserve or anything like that. They didn't choose to do it. They didn't really have any other option at this point. So yeah, I don't think the lesbian kiss is necessarily that big of a deal, except they made it into a big deal. And that's why it comes off as political, because they're like, you have to like this because it's gay and you like gay. And it's just getting overblown to such an extreme degree that it has become a problem when it didn't necessarily need to be one. Now, I've talked to a few people who've seen the movie and they say, yeah, it's really throwaway, not really a big deal. You blink and you miss it. So if it's like that, this didn't need to be an issue, but Disney made it an issue with their reaction to the Florida Bill situation. So I think that definitely hurt the box office, but wasn't a driving factor for the issues it's having at the box office currently. So Lightyear had a lot of low predictions even before the weekend, before it even started, and places like the IndieWire, they're like, hey, why is it so low? Apparently they were only expecting it to make around 75 million domestically, which is really low for a Toy Story movie, Disney movie, Pixar movie. It was just weird that they were lowballing it so much to begin with, and then it went way below even that. So I really surprising that they did it up front, kind of knew how the wind was blowing with how everything was going out from a marketing standpoint. And they need to make money. This is an insane budget, $200 million for this movie. That is insane. That is a massive budget. It's roughly the same as Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, a massive comic book movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I can't believe it had that big of a budget to begin with. So it needs to make around $400 to $500 million to break even. And at this point, I don't see that as being likely, especially with the word of mouth being mediocre at best with this movie. So this opening is not great. This opening of, it turned out to be like $58 million domestically. We'll get into that in a second. But the Toy Story franchise has made over $3 billion in the box office over the last 30 years, roughly. And it's, with inflation, that's an insanely good haul. And the reason I wanted to bring this up, because people are saying, hey, why are you comparing this movie to Top Gun and Jurassic Park? It's just a Toy Story movie. It's just a Pixar movie. Why do you think it needs to make all this money? $50 million is good for this type of movie. And I think that's a very disingenuous argument, especially when comparing it to all its predecessors. $300 billion at the box office over 30 years with inflation, without inflation, is insanely impressive. So yeah, there should be high expectations when it comes to a movie in this franchise. So comparing it to things like Top Gun currently, Jurassic World, comparing to stuff like that is a fair assessment to make because of how much money this franchise has made. And they really, with a budget this high, you need $1 billion to really make it worth your while with a budget like this. So they wanted it to be a highly successful Marvel level movie. And it's just not going to be that. So anyone who is out there saying, oh, you can't compare this to Jurassic World, you can't compare this to Top Gun. Yes, you absolutely can, considering the franchise, considering the money that was put into it, and just with all factors included, absolutely a fair comparison. And some people are saying, oh, it's made the most money for Disney in the theaters since the pandemic started. Well, that's not a hard record to break, considering it hasn't released any movies in theaters since the pandemic started. Onward was right around the transition and then dropped onto Disney Plus near immediately. So yeah, it doesn't have any competition, so no wonder it blew away the competition. Fucking retards on Twitter. It's like, I need the best Disney Pixar movie since the pandemic. Be happy for it. Yeah, it's the best since the pandemic started because it's the only one to release in theaters since pandemic started. So yeah, that's fucking ridiculous. And to go along with this news, there's actually some cool stuff when it comes to Top Gun Maverick at the box office. It has broken new Star Wars and Marvel box office records. This movie is just going to the stratosphere, doing incredibly well, and it's just impressive to see how much a good story, simple story that respects the lore, respects what came before, while building something new, while being story first, is so beloved. It's crazy how that is so successful. At least it's crazy to Hollywood. They cannot fathom why this is doing so much better than everything else happening concurrently. And so the record that it broke is apparently it grossed $44 million at the box office this past weekend, becoming only the fourth movie ever to make over $40 million in their fourth weekend at the box office. Like Force Awakens made 42, so it beat that, and Black Panther made $40 million in its fourth weekend, so it beat that, and it just came short of Avatar's $50 million. So yeah, it broke a very impressive fourth week box office record. And those later records further along in the box office run are actually good records to break, probably even better records than opening day records, because it shows longevity. It shows good word of mouth. People still want to go watch this movie. There's definitely some repeat viewings in there, quite a few. So this is very good news for Top Gun. Really speaks to how popular it is and how likely it is that it'll cross $1 billion. Which I think would be incredible for this movie because it was a great movie. So we have a few more domestic numbers for the weekend. So Jurassic World Dominion, which I didn't think was that good, but it's, dinosaurs killing people. It's all about the spectacle. I can see it being very popular. So it's made a total of $249 million at the domestic box office and $58 million at the domestic box office this weekend alone. Pretty impressive numbers, pretty good for its second weekend. Not really that big of a deal, down 59%. Not bad at all. And Lightyear only with $51 million their opening weekend. That is not good for the movies that it's being compared to. It's not good for a Disney movie. It's really just not good in general. It's not terrible. It's just like, really? Disney? Pixar? Really? It's just not great. That's more what it is. It's not great. It's not what they were predicting even, and they were lowball predictions. And Top Gun Maverick, held over with $44 million with only a 15% drop in the last week, which is really impressive, bringing a total domestic gross to $466 million at the domestic box office. And Doctor Strange, it's done for. It's not going to cross that $1 billion mark with only $4 million made this weekend. There's no way it's going to make it. So Jurassic World, it's crossed $600 million worldwide, so it's well on its way to $1 billion. We'll see how the word of mouth goes with it, how good the longevity with it, but it's well on its way, so pretty impressive. Lightyear, so it did make $51 million at the domestic box office, and then $85 million total at the worldwide box office, which isn't great for something like this. You'd want something like this to make $150 to $200 million at the box office opening weekend. So really not great numbers for a movie of this caliber. And yes, it is a fair comparison to make between this and the other movies that I'm talking about, because it is of that budget level comparable to the others, and it is of a franchise that should bring in people just as much as the other franchises involved in this discussion. So really not that good. I do believe it's more to do with Tim Allen, and just the Toy Story 4 wasn't that great in my personal opinion. That may have had something to do with it. I think the whole marketing thing didn't help, but wasn't the driving factor in it. That's just my personal opinion. And, that may be wrong. It may be entirely because of how Disney addressed the whole gay kiss situation. But that's just my personal opinion. And Top Gun Maverick has crossed $885 million at the worldwide box office. It's well on its way to $1 billion. It's only been out for 4 weeks, only a month. So I think it's roughly a third of the way through its release schedule. So I don't see any problem with it crossing $1 billion, which it definitely deserves. It's a great movie that you should all check out if you haven't already. Just really happy with those numbers. And then, Doctor Strange, it only made $4 million domestically this last weekend, so there's no way. I think this is its last weekend, so this was its last chance to cross $1 billion, and it's still $58 million short of crossing that threshold. Now, Disney is known for re-releasing movies just to get it over certain records, and I can see them doing that. I think they'd wait a little while and try to do some sort of incentive like deleted scenes, but this movie just wasn't as overall popular as something like Spider-Man or Endgame were to warrant a re-release that people will actually go and check out for additional content. Even if they did re-release it, I'm not even sure if it would cross that $1 billion mark even at this point in time. So I didn't think it was a great movie. I think it deserves to fall short of all expectations and all hopes for the studio. It did make its money back. That's definitely the case. So it was definitely a net profit for the businessmen at Disney. But I hope that it not crossing $1 billion is a sign for them that this is not the direction that people want the MCU to go in. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff when it comes to all these different movies going on this weekend. A lot of impressive stuff when it comes to Jurassic World, Top Gun, but Disney is falling short in both of their major movies right now with Lightyear and Doctor Strange. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. Do you think Lightyear is losing because it didn't have Tim Allen in the movie, or do you think it's about the gay situation with Disney blowing things out of proportion, making a big deal out of something that didn't need to be? What are your opinions on this, and what were your thoughts on all these individual movies? Did you disagree with me on maybe Doctor Strange or something like that? But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.